The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Superconference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Superconference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology Podcasts with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost Here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Good afternoon. This is Tracy Murda with Crypto News Insider. Today I have Richard Jacobs, creator of the Future Tech podcast, as well as successful author of Blockchain, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Surprising Insights from 200 plus podcast interviews of industry insiders. Richard's also putting on the Superconference here in Dallas, Texas, February 16th, 17th, and 18th, called the Bitcoin, Ethereum Superconference. Richard, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks, Tracy. How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir, and how are you?
Oh, I'm fine.
Well, Rich, I wanted to start talking to you first about how you actually came into contact or what brought you into the interest of the blockchain, Bitcoin, crypto world.
Yeah, so last year I got all caught up in the Trump versus Hillary election, and I was worried about that every day, and it just made me unhappy. I'd always be anxious about it, and just you're looking to fight with people and all that. And at the same time, I started getting emails from Peter Diamandis, who's the founder of the X Prize, and he has a group called Abundance 360. And all his emails were positive stuff about how the future is going to be good, stem cell technology, 3D printing, Bitcoin, etc. And I read his emails. I felt good. I looked back at the election. I felt bad, and I made a choice back then. What do I want to focus on, positive things or negative things? And I decided to let the election stuff go and focus on positive stuff. And, again, I started reading these articles from Peter Diamandis. I wanted to know more about the people he was interviewing. And I thought, I'd like to interview these people because I just love to ask questions. So I decided to start a podcast called Future Tech Podcast. So I had an assistant helping me get interviews, and we started interviewing the people that would be in Peter Diamandis' emails, for instance. And that just led from one interview to another to another. And over a year's time, I've done over 400 interviews, on 3D printing, artificial intelligence, stem cell research, Bitcoin, blockchain, etc. And it's just been a great ride. And over time, I decided, and I found myself most interested in blockchain technology and Bitcoin and Ethereum, etc. So I started focusing the interviews there. And at some point, I decided, I really want to do more in this space. So that's what initially got me into it.
Rich, how many followers do you have by now?
Oh, on the podcast, we've grown a lot. So let's see. Last month, we got up to 222,000 downloads. It took about a year to do that, but I've been cranking out lots of podcasts. I have a great team that helps me do it in a really efficient way, so that's how I can get so many done. But yeah, it's really grown tremendously. Doing well.
So who do you find are your listeners? Who's your audience out there?
It's early adopters. So, it's people like me that I'm interested in not foo-foo, like Star Trek type stuff, because I don't think a lot of it's real. I'm interested in technologies that are right around the corner, that are just starting here, that are new, and that I can get involved in and learn about. That's the stuff that really excites me. And so that's who the listeners are that I'm attracting. People have heard about stem cell technology, but where is it at? Is it useful? What can it help you with, et cetera? Is it really viable? Can you get it done? 3D printing. What can you 3D print? Can you 3D print, complex stuff or only simple stuff? I don't know if you knew, but there's a guy named Cody Wilson that made plans and he 3D printed the first gun. So, that's just a quick example of what I learned. I interviewed a lady named Lucy Beard. Her company's called Feetz, Feetz, and they 3D print shoes for people. And I ordered a pair for my daughter. And, like one cool insight I learned is that everyone has 2 different size feet. So no one is a given shoe size. If you're 10.5, that really means like your left foot's like 10.75 and your right is, 10.4, for instance. So I learned that kind of stuff from doing it. And yeah, so the listeners are just people that are interested in that kind of stuff, what's the latest and greatest.
Rich, how have you been promoting the podcast?
We kind of figured it out organically. So, we have it on iTunes. We have it on, we do some paid Twitter promotion for 3 days right after our podcast is done. I've seen that works really well. There's subreddit that people are interested in, so we'll post it on subreddits. Facebook is also a good place. Taking the podcast and, adding some screenshots to it, putting it on YouTube is good. So there's no one way, but, we promote it like 6 or 7 different ways, and that really helps it, get out there. We also let the guests know, hey, your podcast is live. Please promote it. Here's some links to do so. And the guests that promote it themselves, then they get a lot more listens. So all that stuff goes into making it work. We've got a website for it, futuretechpodcast.com, et cetera. So all that stuff.
Rich, you've achieved a good number of followers within a relatively short period of time. Why do you think the Future Tech podcast has been so successful?
Because it's exciting and new. Everyone wants to know the latest and the newest, and that's like, it's the bright, shiny object. If you, like, for instance, you read a book, right? Well, probably a lot of people have 100 books in their house, and those aren't interesting to read, but you get a new book from the bookstore, and I want to read that. Or if you get something new online, that's just human nature. I feel the same way too. If you took one of my books out of my house and cleaned it up and then put it in a bookstore and I saw it, I was like, I would probably buy it. It's sad, and I'd read it. So that's how people are. They like the new, they like that stuff. So I think that's why it's done well, and I think I provide good content. Like, I don't laugh with the guest for 10 minutes and just say stupid jokes. I just get right into it. I ask them, what do you do? And we do the podcast, and it's short and sweet, and I try to ask good questions. My goal is for each guest to go, that's a good idea, or I didn't think about that. And I tell the guest, go, take it, run with it, take the idea. So I can get interested in anything for at least 30 minutes when I interview somebody, and I think that's what makes good, listenable interviews.
Well, I've listened to quite a few of your podcasts, and I would say they're very relatable and easy to understand, or they make the material easy to understand. Do you think that's maybe part of why so many people tune in?
Yeah, I try to boil stuff down. I can tell you, as I focused more and more on blockchain and Bitcoin, a lot of that stuff is very technical. It's all made by programmers, and, they're not marketers. They're not lay people. So it's very hard, like, even to describe what's Bitcoin, for instance, and how does it work. It took me at least 30 interviews to get conversant with it. It took me 100 interviews to get pretty good at it. And then it took me writing my book and 250 interviews to become really good at it. Maybe I'm stupid, but it just took me that long. It really did. It took a lot of exposure and a lot of listening to understand stuff. When I look back over old interviews, I go, oh, now I understand what they were talking about. Sometimes it just takes time,
Now, Rich, I want to move to talk about your book a bit. You recently wrote and published Blockchain, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Surprising Insights from 200-plus podcast interviews of industry insiders, available on Amazon. Who is this book for, and what makes it different than a lot of the other books that are out there on the same subject matters?
Yeah, I think you get the title a little bit reversed, by the way. It's Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain, Surprising Insights, blah, blah, but, close enough. So it's on Amazon and Kindle, and it's coming up on Audible audiobook in like a week or so, by the way. After doing all these interviews, maybe it sounds silly, but my head was like exploding with all this info. I had to get it out of my head. So I decided, all right, well, I've done so many blockchain-based interviews, I want to write a book on it. So the book's different because it's not like I'm just sitting there lecturing on the basics of Bitcoin and blockchain. It's what did I learn from interviewing all these companies? So if you imagine, I feel like I'm floating above the industry, 10,000 feet above it and looking down, and I can see everyone and where they're going and what they're doing. These companies are over here doing this, these are doing that. I just feel like I have a great top-down view of the industry because I talk to so many people in it. So I wanted to incorporate that into a book that would give people an idea what's going on in this industry, what's so great about it. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just Bitcoin, it's just money and cryptocurrency. It's not. There's a lot more going on. So So that was the motivation, like selfishly to get it out of my head, and altruistically to help people. I like to entertain and inform people as well.
No, that makes absolute sense. So who do you think it most appeals to?
It appeals to anyone that's curious about Bitcoin and blockchain and all that, because I think this technology is really going to change the world. It's going to affect medicine. It's going to affect, obviously, money and currency and investing. It's going to affect tracking shipments. It's going to affect, security, tons of things. So the people that should read it are the people that, again, have heard about Bitcoin. They're curious. They may know nothing, or they may know quite a bit, and they want to learn what else is out there in this industry. Because I noticed if you just try to go to the web and read about it, it's very difficult. There's no curation of, there's so much stuff out there, it's like insane. So I think this is a very good curation of what's the industry about, why is it important, and what are the exciting things that are going on in the industry that you didn't know about. So I think that's how it'll be most useful to people.
How have you been promoting the book, or are you using the book to further other projects that you're working on, including things like the podcast?
Yeah, now we're starting book promotion. My interview with you is one of the ways we're doing it. We're working on more interviews, press releases. The conference that I'm putting on in February, the book's going to be there available for purchase. For some of the registrants, they're requesting it, so they're buying the book as well. So again, same thing. It's 6 or 7 different promotion methods to get it out there. We have it advertised on Amazon. It's starting to get some good reviews. All that stuff. It's just a process that takes time.
Oh, absolutely. So let's get to the big topic, which is you are now putting on the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Superconference in Dallas, February 16th, 17th, and 18th, 2018. That's a huge undertaking. Why do you think people need to attend this conference?
Well, I'll tell you why I wanted to put it on at all. So I was getting the book done, and again, it just made me even more interested in the space. So I thought, well, how can I be involved in this space? What can I do? Well, I'm not a developer myself. That's okay. I'm more of a business person. So I thought, well, what can I do? I could try to start a company just like everyone else in the space. But I think what would be great, again, to share information and help people is to put on a conference. And so what I did, which is pretty cool, is I talked to all the podcast guests that we had, and I said, hey, we're doing this conference. Would you like to participate? And a good number of them said, yeah. And so, we handpicked a lot of the good ones that I really enjoyed talking to, and that's who's going to be there. And the conference itself is actually like the book. The people here's why they should go. So, again, blockchain and Bitcoin is not just about Bitcoin. It's also Ethereum and smart contracts and, a whole host of other stuff. So for someone that knows either a little or a lot about the industry, they can go and they can meet the people that run the companies that are going to be making the changes that are coming, the big changes. They can hear directly from them. They can see. It's a showcase of what blockchain can do. That's what the conference is about. We're including a beginner class for people that know nothing about Bitcoin and crypto and all that. And again, we're going to hear from probably about 50 speakers, just everything you could think of. I'll give you an example. Salt lending is there. So they let you borrow against your cryptocurrency holdings without liquidating them back to dollars. So let's say you want to buy a house and you've got, 50 grand worth of crypto. You don't have to liquidate it to buy the house. You can borrow against it, put your down payment on the house, still have your crypto, which you think maybe is going to go up, and get your house. So that's an example of who's going to be there. We have companies that are talking about digitization of assets. Can you turn gold into a blockchain-based asset that anyone can invest in without actually having to hold gold? Can we trade stocks and bonds and things like that on a blockchain and make things more accountable with less fraud? Can we make medical data more transparent and, portable so a person has control of their own medical data? There's a lot of different things that are coming from the conference. Again, it's going to be a wide gamut of, hey, man, what can blockchain do? And this is all the things it can do.
So really anyone from a beginner to someone who's been deeply involved in this space, it's going to be a good conference.
Yeah, what I noticed, everyone was busy working. So that you got two kinds of people. You got people that are just interested in the space, but they're busy with their own lives. They don't have time to sit there and read articles all day long and to do all the podcasts like I did. That they just don't have time. It's okay. So they don't know a lot about the industry. There's a lot that they don't see. So it's good for them because a fire hose exposure to tons of things. then even if you're in the industry, let's say you're working at a company, at a startup, and you're doing X. Well, again, you don't have time to read articles all day long and see everything else that's going on in the industry. So even if you're in the industry and you work at a company, this will give you part of that, 10,000-foot view of what everyone else is doing. So, if I had a company in the blockchain industry, I would have someone on my staff doing a podcast. I would find out what my competitors are doing. I find out what everyone in the space is doing, so I can see, like, in the landscape, where am I at, and am I in the right spot, So I think it'll be useful to them too.
And I mean, again, from the marketing, promoting standpoint, how are you doing this for the conference? Are you kind of using all of these different tools that you have available, like the book, like the podcast? I mean, you've got some pretty big name speakers like Tim Draper and John McAfee. How did you get these people to sign up?
A lot of it was driven from the podcast. I mean, you podcast with someone, we offer it free, and then they're happy at the end because they're getting some free promotion. So at the end, I mean, literally, you could probably ask the guests, my speech is, hey, by the way, I put on a conference in February. This is what it's about, blah, blah, blah. Would you guys be interested in participating? And, a lot of time they say, no, sorry, we have other commitments. But a lot of them said, yes, that's really cool. What, talk to me. What can we do? So that was a big way to promote it. The conference itself, so getting speakers and all that, that's what we've done. Then to sell tickets, so, I'll just give people inside baseball if they want it or not. I noticed a lot of these conferences wait till like 2 months before the conference comes, and then they start promoting. And in other industries, they start like a year in advance. So we started about 7 months in advance promoting. And a lot of people are like, oh, you're so early, And I wanted to sell tickets early, as many as I could. Sure, there will probably be a rush at the end, but I don't want to depend on it. So we've been selling tickets. We're over half sold out already, and the conference is still about 3 months away. So it's going really well. And the way to promote it, so I have to get speakers and sponsors, and I have to get attendees. So it's like kind of back and forth. We got a few great anchor tenants. Tim Draper was really gracious and said he'd come speak. Those kind of people, John McAfee, and those help attract more people to come. And as the speaker list got bigger and more people came on board, more people wanted to come on board. And more tickets sell, the more people are there. So it just kind of grows on itself into a big event. And that's how we've been promoting it.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. Sounds like a huge success. I wanted to also talk to you about the new company that you've started. That it sounds very interesting and successful, the Blockchain Edge. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing in this arena. Yeah,
that's a brand new initiative. Again, where am I going with this stuff? So as I get more into the industry and I get more expertise in it, I'm seeing the opportunities. So this is probably a whole other discussion, but I'll touch on it briefly. So, I'm old enough to have been through the dotcom boom and bust, and I see the same thing here in crypto. So I'm not a doomsdayer or anything, but what I see is this. There's thousands of companies that are raising money through an ICO, an initial coin offering, and there's no way all of them can succeed. I hope a lot of them do, but there's just no way they all will. Deloitte, the big consulting firm, just came out with an article that said 92% of all blockchain projects started this year have already gone inactive. And there was like 26,000 projects started this year. And 92% already are inactive just at the end of 1 year. So everyone's raising all this money. Everyone's excited. Bitcoin's exploding. But what's going to happen is at some point in the next 6 months to 3 years, I don't know when, this is my opinion, some of the companies just won't be able to perform and they'll fail. And the investors' money will go down the drain. And investors will get pissed and they'll sue. And then it'll cause a whole bunch of lawsuits in the industry, and the industry will go into a downturn for a while. And it'll be very hard to raise money. People won't want to touch it. And then it'll come out of that even stronger, and it'll flourish. It'll do amazing. And that's exactly what happened with the dot-com boom. People thought, wow, the internet's amazing, and it can change the world, which it did. But it went through a crash for a while. It went through hype, and then a crash, and then it came back stronger than ever. So I see the same thing here. So Blockchain Edge is our consulting company based on all the knowledge we have and my 8 years of marketing experience and many successful marketing projects to help advise companies in the blockchain space on how to be one of the not only survivors but big winners now through any downturn through the next upcycle. And the way you do that is by getting real customers, paying you real money, and have a viable business model, not just like an idea and a white paper and all that stuff. and not just hoping that, the value of your token will go up and that'll save the day. I think that's a bad idea to think like that. And a lot of these companies too, they have tremendous burn rate, 50,000 a month, 100,000 a month. So they don't realize, you raise money through an ICO. Now you've got a couple of people to serve. Now you bought yourself a job. You got to build your technology over the next few years, make it work. You got to get real customers. You got to turn yourself positive cash flow. You have to satisfy your investors that invested in you, because they're going to be pissed off if you don't perform. So now you've got like 4 or 5 bosses, and you're really under the gun. It's not like, hey, I can go buy Lamborghinis and like party now, And I think a lot of these companies don't really fully understand that they've made a deal with the devil in a way. And, now it's like time to get to work. And I think reality is going to hit them. And, if they're not positioned properly, it's going to be a problem.
Rich, what would you say are some of the biggest lessons or techniques that you've learned now marketing in this crypto space arena, whether it's for the podcast or for a book or the conference, your business, et cetera, versus, some of the other marketing that you've done? Is there any sort of trend that sticks out that really works for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and blockchain?
Well, the funny thing is, and this is not anything anyone's going to want to hear, but the marketing is really no different than anything else I've done. My main business is to do marketing for attorneys, for lawyers, and the same marketing we do for them works here. So it's, no one marketing method works. You got to do a whole bunch. And what you'll notice is like some of the methods will work really well. Some of them will be mediocre, and most won't do anything. So, there's a thing called the 80-20 principle, where 80% of your results will come from 20% of your effort. And I see that even with this. So, like we have media partners, right, that are supposed to promote the conference. Well, guess what? I get a report every month on how many tickets they help sell. Well, surprise, surprise, 2 or 3 of the media partners sold 99% of the media tickets, of the tickets. And the rest of the partners sold almost nothing. So there's your 80-20. Out of all the podcasts we've done and all the people we want to participate in the conference, 90% said no, but 10% said yes, and that's enough. Out of the people that are speaking and sponsoring and all that, a small percentage of the speakers are like gigantic successes. Tim Draper, John McAfee, et cetera. And most of the speakers are moderately successful, or just starting to get there. So you see this phenomena everywhere. And I've learned, always look for it and use it to your advantage. Look for those skews, look for the lopsidedness, and do your marketing that way. Market your stuff in many different ways and test and see what works. I'll give you some more insight. So we started advertising on Facebook trying to sell tickets. Didn't work. Then we changed and we said, all right, we're going to do a notification list on Facebook. That's worked phenomenally because we're not asking people to buy anything right off the bat. So we built a list of over 7,000 people and growing that are on our email list. And we email them several times a week, and we just give them good content, good info about the speakers, about what's in the industry, et cetera. And we're selling a lot of tickets because of that. It takes time, but over time, a lot of those people are emailing and say, hey, I love what you're writing. I want to come. How do I book a ticket? So, that's what's working really well. This is inside baseball for anyone that wants to take it and use it. Go ahead. But this is some of what's been involved in making this work. And we saw like some marketing methods just didn't work well. For instance, we advertised on Reddit and Twitter, and they worked okay, for the conference, not great. Facebook gave us most of the leads. Just that's what happened. So there's the 80-20. We're focusing more on Facebook.
I love it. So you proof is in the pudding. You kind of are testing and moving where you need to move based on the results you're getting. That makes perfect sense. So, yeah. Rich, tell me just some final thoughts. How can someone get in touch with you or reach the conference, the book, the podcast? What's the best way to get this awesome information that you're putting out?
Yeah, I'll give some resources. So for the podcast, you can go to iTunes or the website, futuretechpodcast.com. For the book, if you go to Amazon and you put in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Bitcoin, the book will come up and you can buy it there. It's also on Kindle and Audible, for people that like to listen. For the conference, you go to bitcoinsuperconference.com. That's the best way to reach it. And there's email contact there. There's phone. We're very reachable that way. For Blockchain Edge, for the consulting, you just go to blockchainedge.net. And again, you can contact us there. So, I'm here, pretty accessible. It's easy to reach. So those are all the methods.
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Richard, for your time today. And again, for our listeners, this was Richard Jacobs, creator of the Future Tech podcast, author of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain, surprising insights from 200-plus podcast interviews of industry insiders. Richard is also putting on the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Superconference in Dallas this year at February 16th, 17th, and 18th, 2018. Thank you so much, Richard. It's been a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing from you all over the place.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tracy. I appreciate it.
The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Superconference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Superconference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.